So Saudi ruler Jamal Khashoggi did an interview, I think, with The Atlantic, and he pulled an O.J. Simpson. Take a look at this. Saudi ruler MBS bizarrely insists Khashoggi wasn't important enough for him to want dead. And even if he was, he would have used more competent assassins. Quote, Khashoggi would not even be among the top 1,000 people on the list. It's got to be professional. Oh my God. He really pulled I didn't do it, but if I did, here's how I would have done it. That is the full O.J. Simpson right there. And that is like the guiltiest shit I've ever heard anybody say in my entire life. I didn't do it. But if I did, it would have been way more professional. We wouldn't have, chopped him up using a bone saw, had a body double that barely looks like him at all. Man, astounding. There's another part of the interview that's hilarious. He says something like, I feel like people are violating international law standards in coming after me because you're not assuming I'm innocent until proven guilty. So when people point out to him, hey man, you violated international law, you did like war crimes here, killing some innocent reporter, and he's like, actually, the violation of international law was done against me because I'm innocent until proven guilty. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, let me show you, at the same time, like a day or two after this story came out, where homeboy's like, totally making a fool of himself and in so many words admitting, like, of course I did it. I don't buy he's not in the top 1,000. By the way, that shows you he's thought about that, right? Like, who is in the top list of people I would murder? Let me think about it. And they're doing it. But anyway, here's what we got a day or two after that interview dropped. Take a look. Axios scoops. President Biden's advisors are discussing a possible visit to Saudi Arabia this spring to help repair relations and convince the kingdom to pump more oil, Axios has learned. Wow. So Biden and MBS are not on good terms right now for a variety of reasons. And MBS has effectively limited the supply to the West and jacked up the prices for oil to the West. And he's doing that to try to squeeze out Biden, squeeze out the Democrats in the midterms because he views the Republicans as more on his side, more willing to work with him, more willing to give him whatever he wants. And so Biden is now trying to smooth that over. He's going to talk to him. I love that at the same time, we are crying about the rules-based international order, about Russia committing wanton crimes. At the same time we're punishing them, we're also trying to repair relations with a guy who's doing a genocide in Yemen. I mean, it makes no sense. It shows if you are an official enemy state, we're going to highlight all the worst things about you and what you do. If you're an official ally state, you can get away with anything because you're on our team, so it's okay. And so that's what this is. I mean, we are actively aiding and abetting a genocide in Yemen. Saudi Arabia is carrying it out. And he's like, we got to go make peace. This guy murdered Jamal Khashoggi and no consequences whatsoever. And in fact, the U.S. is going to beg him now. Hey, man, for the love of God, please help us out with the oil a little bit more. It's hard to take any claim at all of concern for human rights or democracy or being the world police. It's hard to take any of the things we say about official baddie countries seriously when we're snuggling up to one of the worst of the worst countries. Seriously, one of the worst of the worst. So, God, it's so hypocritical. It's so annoying. And I have to say, what's my solution? What would I do? Honestly, I would go to Venezuela and go to Iran, and I would try to work out some sort of a deal with them. The problem with U.S. relations with those countries in the first place is the U.S. Iran is not a threat to us. Venezuela is not a threat to us. Iran is not a threat to its neighbors. Venezuela is not a threat to its neighbors. We just don't like their governments. We're mad at Iran because in 1979, they threw out our puppet dictator, the Shah, who gave us the cheap oil. That's still why we're angry at them. That's still why we're on bad footing with them, on top of them being enemies with Saudi Arabia and Israel. And Venezuela is just, we don't like that it's a, quote unquote communist regime that's there. And that hurts U.S. business interests, so we're against it. And we're going to levy every sanction under the sun and try to squeeze them out or whatever. Well, now you realize at a moment like this, hey, it'd be nice to have at least a neutral footing with Iran and with Venezuela. And so now you have an opportunity. I would go to them well before I'd go to MBS and go to Saudi Arabia. To the extent you can, as much as possible, try to remain on neutral footing with a lot of countries. This is part of the Kyle doctrine. You don't have to, you don't have to bend over backwards and defend them, and you don't have to levy the harshest sanctions in the world against them. To the extent you can, have a relatively neutral approach, and then if there are like egregious violations, well, then we can revisit that and look at specific actions for those specific things. Like in Saudi Arabia, in Israel, yeah, there are certain things you should probably sanction to put a stop to it. And with what Russia's doing to Ukraine, yeah, there are certain things you should probably do to help stop it. But as much as you can, remain on a neutral footing. And if we had a neutral relationship with Venezuela, if we had a neutral relationship with Iran, there might be a deal we can make out of this, and we wouldn't have to embarrass ourselves and go hat in hand begging to MBS, a genocidal maniac who's also a psychopathic liar. So anyway, there you have it. It's amazing he didn't realize how ridiculous it would sound and how guilty he sounds when he says, I didn't kill him, but if I did... Just stop talking, dude. You're not doing yourself any favors. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.